And you're asked to write this in the standard form for a complex number, right? So if you're doing this by hand, you would need to multiply by I over I. Okay? So if you did it in that manner, okay, so you could multiply the entire equation by I over I. It would give you negative 2i if you distribute through, minus 5i squared, all over 3i times I, which is I squared. Everywhere you have an I squared, you could replace that with a negative 1. So again, you would replace this with a negative 1 and this with a negative 1. Now, would these two negative 1s cancel? Careful. And remember, this is a part of a term being subtracted from the numerator. So what you would have to do, you cannot just cancel these two. What you'd have to do is apply this negative out front here. So a negative times a negative turns this into a positive. And so on the top, we'd be left with a 5 and a minus 2i. And then in the denominator, you'd be left with a 3. And then you could just distribute this 3 into each individual term. So 5 over 3 minus 2i over 3. And so this would be the form of your answer. Now, you don't have to do this by hand. You can use your calculator. So if you were entering this on your calculator, take the entire quantity in the numerator and put it within grouping symbols. So a negative 2 minus 5, remember your I is this second catalog. Close off that whole group and then divide by. Now, here's what's happening, and it's happening to a number of you. Okay, so I'm going to show you the mistaken way first, and then I'm going to go back and show you the correct way. The mistaken way to do this, a lot of you, if you were entering 3i in the denominator, you would enter it just like this. Okay, think about the calculator or how it manages order of operations. Okay, it just goes from left to right if there's no priority in the operation. So here, when we take this whole quantity in grouping symbols, that gives it priority. So it does take that whole quantity here, but then it divides it by 3 and then multiplies by I. There's no priority. It doesn't understand in this form that you're trying to divide by 3 and I. So notice what happens when I hit enter here. Hey, do you see up here, if you look back at your display, was this I in the denominator like you wanted it? No, and you can see that in the display. I would definitely recommend look up in your calculator, see how it displays it, not your answer, but just displays what you entered. Make sure that it's displaying it the way you intended it. And in this particular case, since it doesn't, what we have to do is put the entire quantity in the denominator in grouping symbols, and now look how this differs when I display it. Now my 3i is all in the denominator, and I get my answer. Here it looks like, where was I? Oops, I didn't write my, let me see. Oh, I forgot to include this negative down here. So this negative 3, I forgot to multiply by the negative 1 in the denominator, so it would change the sign of each of these terms. So you get a negative 5/3, minus and minus becomes a plus 2i over 3. And so that would be your solution here.